Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. We are very excited to welcome you to today's session. I think we'll just give a couple of minutes for any late arrivals and then we'll get cracking.
I think, Michael, you should just prepare some jokes for this awkward moment of silence.
I should have done, shouldn't I? I should have prepared something. It looks like we've got a lot of attendance from people all over the world. That's great to see. Fantastic stuff. I think, given the amount of attendance we've got, let's get stuck in and kick off today's session. So, as I said before, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. We're really excited to welcome you to today's session. As you know, the Summer 25 release has been out a little while now. And what we wanted to do at Aquiva is to, having been out in the field working with the release over the last few weeks and month or so, we've seen so many updates, some really exciting features, some really exciting new introductions, and we really felt it warranted a dedicated session to kind of share our findings, share our learnings with all of you. For today's session, just to kind of set the scenes, we're planning to do sort of 45 minute session. That's inclusive of Q&A. So anywhere up to about 45 minutes for today's session. With that, I will pass over to Jakub to kick off some of the introductions before we get stuck into today's content. So Jakub, over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm Jakub Stefaniak. I'm based in Poland. Professionally, I'm Salesforce Certified Technical Architect, serving in Aquiva Labs as Field Chief Technology Officer. And I some time ago published a book about App Exchange Success Blueprint, thanks to Marco Kuster, who was strongly supporting me that time. Marco, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. So I'm Marco Costa. I'm based in France. I've been at Salesforce for more than 15 years, and I'm part of the partner solution or global partnership, which is now the ISV team. And I hope I'm going to take over to you, Michael, to introduce yourself again.
Sure thing. Thank you, Marco. So I haven't been at Salesforce for decades, nor have I written a book on the App Exchange. But I do run the solution consulting team here at Aquiva Labs. I've spent over a decade in the Salesforce ecosystem, including a number of years working alongside Marco and his team in what was the ISV technology solutions team at Salesforce before joining Aquiva, doing some architecture work here at Aquiva for a year or so before running the solution consulting team. So I'm really excited to be joined by two titans of the ISV ecosystem and presenting some learnings with you all today. Just in case there's anybody on the call who may not be familiar with Aquiva Labs, let me just take 30 seconds here to just sort of tell you who we are. So our founder initially started Aquiva Labs off of the back of some real success he had in the ISV ecosystem, within the Salesforce ecosystem. He built an ISV. He was able to successfully exit that ISV, and then he wanted to turn his attention to helping other ISVs do the same and achieve success within the Salesforce ecosystem. Since then, we've been in the market for 9 years. We're now an organization of over 220 Akivans with over 1,300 certifications between us. And we've managed to attain a couple of great accreditations in that time. We are an expert product development outsourcer, and that's where our roots are really. They come from that product development, App Exchange, product-oriented mindset. But we've also, over the years, become a summit consulting partner as well. So we play to both of those key sort of consulting partner strengths that organizations have within the Salesforce ecosystem. And we happen to be a top tier in both of those, which I think really makes us unique. And as you can see here, we have a global reach, we've got a global team, and we cater to some of Salesforce's largest ISV and OEM partners, as well as, of course, many of their largest enterprise customers using the Salesforce platform as well. So that's Aquiva. In terms of today's session, I think there's 6 main areas that we want to touch on that we thought were most interesting to the AppExchange and ISV community. So first of all, we're going to start with some of the format enforcements that are taking place with regard to the JDK to ICU changes. We'll talk about, of course, 1GP to 2GP migration, something that I'm sure many of you have been waiting for. We'll then move on to talking a little bit about Agentforce. No Salesforce session in the current climate is complete without talking about Agentforce. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of the changes and some of the exciting moves we've seen in Agentforce, specifically catered to packaging and distribution. We'll talk a little bit about the security review and some of the changes that are happening there. We'll move on to the SLDS linter and SLDS2 and some of the styling changes that are occurring, before finishing by talking about Salesforce Code Analyzer version 5, and then we'll move, of course, into some Q&A and answer your questions at the end there as well. So looking forward to getting stuck into each and every one of those topics. Kicking off then with the ICU format enforcement. So let me just take a moment to kind of tell you about it if you haven't heard about it. You may have received a number of notifications over the past few months, but just in case you've not got to grips with exactly what this is. So these formats are really responsible for enforcing how critical data points, things like currencies, addresses, names, and other information are formatted based on your language and your location. So, for example, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the UK, and so in the UK, our dates are formatted day, month, year. But in the US, even though we speak the same language, they're formatted month, day, year. So what these formats are really responsible for is ensuring that the format that we're sort of regionally familiar with are presented to us in the appropriate format. Salesforce has made the decision to shift from the JDK format of the past into the ICU format, the International Components for Unicode locale formats. So Marco, I'm going to hand over to you at this point to talk a little bit about why that matters.
I think it really matters, and I think it's quite interesting because we've got a pretty large audience. So everybody is having different languages and different cultures. And I think now we are all in the agentic moment, and therefore it's more than ever important for agentic solution to understand properly your culture, your languages. And moving to the ICU is just something that we are aiming for, so that whatever you're building is going to be fully understood, whatever languages, whatever local settings you want to use. That will really help any application, including agentic application, to properly provide you answers, thinking about all those LLMs that are using it and so on. And if you are more into global businesses, that will help you to survive to the different currency languages and all the differences between, like Michael, you were talking about Americans and British. We have the same thing between the French, the Switzerland people, the Belgian people, and the Canadian. We all speak some kind of French and end up like counting even differently and things like this. So this is just a survival mode. And again, I think AI driven. So Jakob, over to you now.
Hey, sure. So what is the problem? It sounds like very simple, and it's obvious to see benefits of implementing this change. And Salesforce even wanted to make it so simple to just enable it across all customers org. But if there is at least one component, Apex class, like LWC, whatever, using old API version, older than version 35, the rollout has been blocked. And Michael, if you can switch to the next slide.
Of course.
That's exactly the email which I received around a month ago. So my part-time business org was not updated. And it's a very poor email saying that there is some technical debt on this org. They're going to try to enable it again during the next release. Of course, I can also enable it manually after I will remove all this old metadata or update them to the new one. Unfortunately for us, it means that either this tech debt is local stuff on my org, or what can be even more problematic, part of managed package which is installed on my org. And from ISV perspective, that's a pretty big thing because, it's easy to add features, add new components and so on to your package. But what usually we are doing, if something is this legacy part of the system which we built 10 years ago, we are just forgetting about this. Instead, intentionally removing stuff or refactoring it to the latest API versions. And now is the first time when you can really expect that your customers, when they figure out that your package is the single piece blocking enforcement of ICU, are going to be pretty upset about this. So if you can switch on, Michael.
Of course.
Our recommendation would be to, first of all, verify in your code repository, do you have any components using these old API versions? Then update them. From developer's perspective, it's super simple. You are just updating a single number, but next one, you unfortunately need to retest and make regression tests of your entire applications. If you have a good Apex unit test and automated test, that's perfect. If not, it's going to take significant manual effort. And then if you do it once in your life, it's not going to be fun, believe me. So automating your CI/CD to detect this kind of legacy API versions is a good pattern. So what you can do intentionally, every time when you are refactoring some old part of the system, take a habit to update API versions to avoid having such significant projects which are not bringing any extra business value instead of having this single update, right? And with this, we can only wish you good luck or often a hand if you need some extra capacity to make it quickly because your customers are really upset about this.
And Marco, I think there was one last point that you wanted to raise as well, although it's not necessarily under what to do. It's just a point of awareness for all of the ISVs on the call.
Yeah, I'm going to reuse Jacob's point on customer being upset. We have a couple of ISV that have been upset about the LMA and the COA not being ICU compliant. So thank you for sharing your concern. We are, I would say, trying to do all the best practices from Jacob. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, LMA and FMA, I'm not sure we have all the best practices in places. So I guess it's going to take us a little bit more time to just upgrade the API to a 45. I think what we're also trying to do is like revisit. I think this is also part of the best practices, revisit the way we've been building this. And those are very old elements, as Jacob was saying, and therefore it's going to be painful. So be patient. If your PBO is getting complexity, we are aiming to do that in the upcoming month.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marco. And I was questioning whether to share this or not, but I think I will. When you were talking there, Marco, about the different types of French in France and Switzerland and Belgium, when I was looking into the whole ICU format change, one thing, when I was looking through the documentation, one thing I noticed between the US and the UK was in the JDK version, if you look at a negative number, like a negative currency or what have you, if it's a currency, I think in the JDK version in the UK, we put that in parentheses, but in the ICU, we put a negative sign in front of the number. In the US, it's the exact opposite. So in both situations, neither of the two are the same, which I just thought was quite a funny little thing to see in the little documentation there. But anyway, moving on, shall we? 1GP to 2GP migration. This is probably the topic which requires perhaps the least introduction, given we've got a heavy ISV and AppExchange audience here today. I know it's something that many of us have been waiting for. So I'm going to give a very brief introduction to this one. So as many of you will have noticed already, partners can, or at least many partners, can now migrate their packages from the legacy 1GP technology to 2GP, which enables you to take advantage of the 2GP capabilities like multi-package same namespace solutions, like flexible version management, like frictionless source-driven development. So I think, as I said before, enormous number of ISVs out there who have been in the ecosystem for a very long time, really excited to be able to conduct this migration from 1GP to 2GP and take advantage of these features. But Marco, why don't you delve once again even more into why this matters to our ISV community?
I think, first of all, it matters because we had traditionally started with 1GP. That's why it's called 1GP, because if I remember, it wasn't called 1GP. It's only called 2GP. 1GP once 2GP was introduced. So it's really the legacy element. And I think that was very nice 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But I think nowadays people want to develop in what they call a modern DevOps environment. And I think I'm not going to articulate exactly all what it is, but we've been publishing, I think, a blog that explains modern development on the App Exchange. I can give you the link after that if you are interested in this. But I think it summarized lots of the things. One is the fact that in 2GP, you've got one namespace, patch are 10 times easier to be able to be applied. You can really control drastically what you want to do. The dependency is built completely differently. So lots of the things that people are expecting nowadays are available only in 2GPs. And we have traditionally had all our partners in 1GP, and they've been, I don't want to use Jakob terms again, but I'm going to just use another one, screaming at us, asking us politely for the past 3 years, is there a way to upgrade? So it's there. So now you can effectively convert your 1GP package into a 2GP packages, and then you can push that version to your customers. I think what we're saying is that because you are now able to share one namespace, and that's one of the biggest elements on 2GP, you should be also rethinking the way you are packaging elements. With 1GP, we've seen a huge amount of our partners creating monolithic application, and with 2GP, we see a much more modular approaches to that. And also something that we are more and more seeing is that there is an appetite to get 1GP out of the product management duty, because you can think about this from Salesforce perspective, which I represent today. We have to deliver every metadata component to make sure it's 1GP and 2GP. We were talking about testing and so on. So now that we have the conversion, there is certainty that, safe harbor, I don't know when, but that 1GP will be retired, and that more and more product manager will prefer to deliver functionality through 2GP. And if you think about that, that wasn't the case before. So that's a very important element. So I would just encourage everybody to move into 2GP, taking this migration element. But I'm curious, Jakob, how do you discuss this with your ISV prospect or ISV partner?
Sure. So first thing is that, even if the migration is officially GA, I think, Michael, we can show it here. Yeah. The thing is that now it's the staggered rollout process, which means that if you just try to run a command line and it fails, it means that it's not enabled yet for your partner's business org, and then you just need to wait. It's a big thing, so I fully understand that Salesforce prefers to give some partners a heads up to just avoid big disruption in case of some unexpected problems. And the migration itself should be relatively simple. So we worked with partners who decided to make migration from 1GP to 2GP before, when it was not a simple command line, but it really required to building a new 2GP package with the same metadata, going through security review and so on. So that was a very time-consuming process. And now, after you just run through command line's command, it's going to work. But if you really want to benefit from this migration, it's a little bit different story. If you currently have a huge package with tens of millions of lines of Apex code, and building your package is taking maybe 6, maybe 8 hours, the biggest benefits for you is going to be this ability to have many small packages with the same namespace, so splitting your monolith. On the other hand, if you are currently owning a small package when you used to just deploy everything manually to your packaging org, add these changes manually, and you don't even use a code repository, to benefit from 2GP, you need to educate yourself about what code repository is, how properly configure CI/CD pipeline. So all these good DevOps practices, which are quite common with big companies, for small ISVs, it's going to be something new, and it can give you lots of advantages. There are like some extra tools which even can create for your user interface when you can see the new versions of your package to manage push upgrades and so on. But there is some learning curve. And best advice for me is that even if you are not in this group which can make the migration immediately, it's a perfect moment to start getting this knowledge and preparing yourself. Because if you are working in a company when you have some quarterly rocks, plans, budgets, and so on, finding enough talents to do these things and then make migration tests and migrate your customers and so on, it's probably not going to take you a day or two. So like, it's a perfect moment not to start clicking migrate, but definitely it's a perfect moment to start to think how to make it happen and how much extra benefits and value for your company user can get doing this process. Back to you, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just one more thing I would just to emphasize from what both of you have said, which is that the migration is one piece, but how do you take advantage of the benefits that second generation package? I think all three of us have said, you can create multiple packages within the context of the same namespace, which is fantastic. But if you've already got a larger monolithic application, other opportunities for you to think about whether or not that's still the right place or the right approach for you, given this technology. And if that's the case, maybe there are opportunities to rethink your application architecture. You can do that in isolation, or if you're looking for experts who have done this and who are currently doing this with many of our ISV partners at the moment and are thinking about these things, then do feel free to reach out. But thank you both for your input there. Okay, moving on to Agentforce, templates and Lightning Web Component targets. So two different topics here, but really both under the same Agentforce banner, two really exciting things that we wanted to talk about as part of today's session to make sure that every ISV that joined is aware of. So first of all, I think it's fair to say it's taken a little bit of time to get the ISV community up to speed to where the customer community has been with regard to Salesforce and Agentforce. But what it's very easy to see is that Salesforce is investing in Agentforce for ISVs, is investing in packageability for ISVs, and is actually introducing some pretty cool new tech to actually enhance an ISV's experience when it comes to using Agentforce. That's through the creation of what are called agent templates that allow ISVs to build dedicated solutions relevant to their applications, rapidly speeding up time to value for your ISV community, for your ISV customers, and then reducing or potentially even removing post-install steps as a result. So that's point one through Agentforce templates. The second really exciting feature that we've come across is the two new Lightning Web Component targets, which we'll dive into in a little bit more detail. But these are both for input values into the Agentforce user interface and to output action-specific user experience components, merging kind of two different realities, really, of our Lightning Web Component interfaces and our Agentforce interfaces in one streamlined user experience. So, Marco, over to you to talk a little bit more about why that matters.
Yeah, so again, I think you're raising a good point about our ability to deliver like sooner functionality to ISVs. I think agent template is one of the first time where we were able to deliver that in the same time as we were using that internally. So none of the customer can really develop agent templates, so to speak. But I think really the value of agent template is I see that as a big accelerators. By that, I mean, not only you can predefine a certain amount of function that you want to deliver to your customers. And by that, I mean, that could be a full-blown agent, or that just could be some of the component, maybe just an action, maybe what you were doing in Q4, something like this. So you can really control how you want to transmit that agent to your customers. And the idea is that therefore your customer is using a template. Template is something that you may be used to. We're using the exact same processes as a site template. That by that I mean it's a full copy. Therefore, you're pushing that copy onto the customers, and then the customer can customize, which is essentially something that is really key for customers. Whereby this means also that you do not need to fully define your agent, because now you can do kind of like half into the product and half into the implementation. But still, for the end user, your customer, it's going to be click, click, click. And there we go, you got a full-blown component that is fully deployed. On top of that, I think there's another element, which is this becomes like a mini application, so to speak. And therefore, you can control the wizard. And from that, you can define your brand, you can define a huge amount of elements. so that, again, customer will see that really as a template. I think to me that's really why it really matters. I think also the second point is around everything that is the lightning targets. And as you were saying, Michael, maybe I'll come back into the value once we are coming back onto the slides.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
And what for me is interesting, that agent first is a very new thing. And we know that more than 200 companies already published their agent first extension packages. And with agent first template, I would say all of them already have significant technical debt, because if I'm comparing this all the experience with manually setting all these things comparing to just creation of agent from the template, the only reason to leave it as is the fact that you do not have people to do it, because like from your customer perspective, not many customers are yet using agent first. And it means that every new admin who will first time start using agent first and implementing agent from scratch is going to just learn how to do it from templates. So sooner or later, following your whole list of manual steps is just going to be so cumbersome that people may just decide to do not use it at all, right? And if we can continue, Michael, maybe it's a good moment to show how it looks from the system administrator perspective. So what you see now is our Marek Butler, our open source project from Aquiva Lab. And now as the admin, I'm just clicking select an agent, picking one of templates, either installed by Salesforce by default or managed packages, and that's all.
If I may just intervene on that slide, because I think there is some roadmap around this. I think our goal is really, and you may, as a customer, you may have been creating some agent and you see it's turning into a wizard where we're trying to predefine and pre-fill everything. What we're aiming is that we're going to suggest agent template to customers based on the first stages where they said, I want to build an agent doing this. So right now you can see the wizard where we are showing a selection of template, but what we're really aiming for is the discoverability from within the wizard itself. So that's kind of like roadmap features.
Wow, that sounds really exciting, Marco. Thanks for sharing. I think there's one more thing I wanted to note on this slide as well, because we are talking about our real world experiences in this webinar, having been out in the field. And when we were putting this, and I say we, the royal we really, because it was actually one of our MVPs at Aquiva, Robert Surseman, who was building this out and has been responsible for building the vast majority of My Org Butler, which is an open source Agentforce tool for interacting with your Salesforce data, your Salesforce metadata. It's a really, really great tool, and you should check it out if you haven't. But whilst he was going through this process, he encountered a couple of issues. Specifically, I think if I'm right in saying that they were relating to the upgrade process. What was really interesting about that experience was, yes, fine, they were issues that we ran into when we were trying to create this this template and take advantage of Agentforce templates. But what was really great to see and turned this experience, I think, from quite a, what could have been a negative experience into a really positive one, is that the product team at Salesforce immediately acknowledged it as a known issue. And I think Robert told me there was a fix rolled out for both of them in literally a matter of days. So just to emphasize that, it is really clear to see that Salesforce is investing and is taking seriously our ability to distribute Agentforce solutions like this. And to be honest, gives us even more confidence that building Agentforce solutions as part of our ISV applications is a strategy for Salesforce.
What you said, it sounds like it's mitigate a little bit this fear. Is it a good moment to innovate, or maybe it's a new technology, it's still a little bit crappy, so better wait a little bit? And usually it's not obvious answer, but based on this experience, it sounds like with Agentforce, it works. And Salesforce is really like supporting it. So it sounds to me like the answer in this case is that, it's a moment to be their own Agentforce package if you haven't thought about this yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to carry on through the user experience that you're seeing here. So in that first step, if you've not seen the deployment of one of these templated Agentforce solutions yet, as you can see here, if we select My Org Butler from this template selector, you can then see that all of the various different topics that are included within My Org Butler are available for selection here. And because this is a clone by copy and not a clone by reference, that gives our customers the ability to choose the topics that are relevant to them, and indeed add additional topics once they've deployed the agent, if it makes sense to do so. Marco, perhaps I'll pass to you to talk a little bit more about the second half of the updates to Agentforce, which is the new Lightning Web Component targets.
Yes, I think to me, this is the more, I mean, not the more, but one of the most exciting moments, because I've been, and I think we all been starting to work on Agentforce. We realized that it's an LLM and that it's text driven. And there was some kind of frustration because the only thing we could be providing was some time to render the outcome as a card, which looks like a mini mobile application where we were like just throwing a certain amount of information related to a record. And I think we hear you clear. There was a huge amount of partners getting frustrated. I think even ourselves internally, we were getting frustrated, and we were thinking, we've got Lightning Web Component. Who do we need to talk to in order to get this net new targets so that we can have a very dedicated user experience while talking to an agent? And as such, we have on your left screen, you've got the ability now to collect data differently. We've been collecting data for, I don't even remember, but 20 years through what I call a form. Now the form is back, which is kind of like a looping moment, but it's quite interesting because you can control the UI precisely. And also, I think the other target, which is the output target, which is also very important, is really the ability for you to control the way you want to represent the outcome. Because yes, it's fantastic to say, yes, you have a ticket, but it would be even better to render ticket, render QR code so that you can download your whatever you want. All the kind of thing now are kind of like open, because we all know Lightning Web Components are kind of like limitless. So to me, that's really important. It's old technology, Lightning Web Components. So feel free to use it, to abuse it, and to package it because it's packageable. So that's the cherries on cake.
Great stuff. Thanks, Marco. So moving on to our next topic, brief overview about Chimera. Jakob, do you want to cover this topic?
Sure, security is my favorite topic because it's mandatory for ISVs and it's what usually brings them to us, right?
Yeah,
and the thing is that if you can show the next one, officially passing it first time, it's fun, but making the submission, which officially is expected every 1 or 2 years, it's even more funny. And not sure, Michael, could you tell us, is it really happening that every 1 or 2 years?
So I hope this call is not recorded, but we have a secret formula when partners are submitting. We are doing two things. We are evaluating the complexity of the application from a security perspective, API calls, that could make it very complex. Also, we are looking at something that is less secret, which is the amount of attempts that the company made before passing, which I must confess, I have some big guys on my dashboard that are hitting the 10. So based on that, we're doing kind of like a single formula to combine this, and then that define if we're going to call you every year, or maybe we're just going to wait 5 years. We tend to say 1 to 2 years because this is what we're aiming to do, ensuring that you are still compliant, that the application is still secure. But the reality is we have to prioritize, and that is kind of like a secret sauce for us.
Awesome, that's helpful. So if your application is fully native, which means that everything is built only with Salesforce technologies, this doesn't apply to you. But if there is any third-party system, AWS, Endpoint, Google Cloud, whatsoever, to are integrating some API, as part of the security review process, you must run a dynamic application security testing across these external endpoints. And unfortunately, at this moment, you need to change your old way of doing stuff. So consider using some alternative to Chimera, like OWASP, ZAP, Pursuit Enterprise Edition, or something different. Because For a long time, Chimera was available to AppExchange partners. And between you and me, it was not the best technology in the world. I mean, it was good technology 20 years ago, and 10 years ago was okay. But I'm not going to miss it between you and me. And it's only a heads up that the other tools which are currently on the market, and I think we can show some logos like OAS or Burpsuit, are probably better and more user-friendly. But if you only use Chimera, it's good to educate yourself and prepare for this next submission, which probably is going to come to you sooner or later. So we are not going to be surprised that the only tool which you ever use is not available, and you have to get this knowledge as soon as possible because of some deadlines. Back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Jakob. So an update then on SLDS Linter and SLDS 2. So what is it? Well, you might have seen already, if not in your own orgs, you might have seen in some of the marketing materials or in demo orgs that Salesforce is running at the moment, the newly styled buttons, the newly styled components. It is possible to switch on, I think, in sandboxes at the moment, and in some demo environments and potentially in dev orgs as well. If you've not seen it yet, don't worry, there is a screenshot in a second. But it is ever slightly confusing because what we're seeing at the moment is actually the release of a couple of different things at once. So firstly, there's Cosmos, which is, well, first of all, which was previously referred to as the Enhanced Lightning UI. But that's the first theme, when you go into the setup menu and you go to themes and branding, and you choose from all of them your own colors and branding and things like that if you want to. Well, you'll see a new theme in there called Cosmos. That's the first theme that's actually built on the SLDS2 architecture. So we're talking about the introduction of a new architecture or a new design framework for SLDS. That's what's referred to as SLDS2. And then there's the theme, which is Cosmos at the moment, which is the first and only available theme that's built on top of that framework. You'll find that when you go to look at it, it's got more circular characteristics. It's designed to make it easier to focus and navigate, or at least that's what the documentation says. But I think what's more important to you as ISVs is that that enhanced sort of design layer, making things more flexible, allowing you to sort of style your components using CSS properties and styling hooks in a slightly different way than we did in the previous iteration of SLDS is probably more interesting. But Marco, I'll pass to you to give us another overview of why this should matter to our ISV community.
I think the way I'm looking at this is there is always a marketing component inside Salesforce. So I think we have to change our design from time to time. There is branding motion coming our way. So we are changing this. But I think overall, all what you were saying, Michael, is completely true. I think the way I'm looking at this is 2 seconds ago, we just started to say that Lightning Web Components are entering the world of Agentforce. And I hope that everybody is fully aware that there are more and more agents that are building code. So I think what we're trying to, again, achieve here is to not only kind of refresh our design principle, but also make them more AI ready. And I think we have a screenshot about the changes, and I think I will certainly come back into this and re-explain how it's more AI focused at that time. But to me, that's really the point. Sorry, go ahead. Click next one. Yes.
And for me, this part about fact that with all these tools, generally the unification of your code base is starting to be more and more important. It means that with just living with your custom components, you are going to get more and more hallucinations and so on. Ability to refactor things and so on, all of them are going to be limited. And maybe, Michael, if you can show on the next screen how it looks like. Yeah, it's, looking pretty nice, I would say, comparing to this old experience. And what is quite important is that from ISV perspective, your apps are going to get best reviews and the best opinions from your users if they are similar to Salesforce you can feel. So building something fully custom, if you are OEM partner, it means that they're going to spend lots of money. And if you are ISV first partner, it means that you are going to spend lots of money, and probably your customers are going to be still disappointed with the output. So doesn't sound like a good plan.
Yeah. The other thing, just on the layout here, as you see it, this is a screenshot taken from a demo environment, but also there is a Figma kit for SLDS2. So we've already got UX designers here at Aquiva who are already making use of SLDS2 to sort of design and shape the future of our customers' orgs and their applications.
Yeah, and now maybe just 1 second to take a look what is the difference. That generally on the left we have this old kind of CSS file with some hard-coded data and so on, which now is replaced by this composable CSS when we are using hook architecture. And generally, even from code quality point of view, it looks just more clean and easier to maintain.
Yeah, and if I just can add
Please.
something, I think if you look at that, there's another way to look at this, which is on the left. The old system was really designed for human to avoid us to type a huge amount of element, making it straight to the point. You know, like the background color, you were just saying it's white. And now when you look at the second one, it looks like much more standardized and much more AI ready. This means an AI agent can now even write down your own CSS and element like this, because it's very standard. It may be a bit more difficult for us as human, but that's the way we're going. Sorry, Michael, over to you.
Yeah, sure. And then Jakob, do you want to do a quick overview of the SLDS linter?
Sure. So in a few words, because we're quite a bit out of time, there is something called SLDS linter, which currently is in beta, and it's a tool which allows you to analyze your Lightning Web components comparing to SLDS2 styles, and also it can help you with fixing some problems with your styles. So long story short, if you just install it as part of your IDE, Visual Studio Code, and so on, it should be part of your normal software development cycle. And for the best results, to make sure that this one developer, which probably you are already thinking about, just forget to use this plugin and it's because of this you have mess, you can also consider integrating linter as part of CI/CD pipeline. So during every pull request, automatically you will see the output of the validation of your frontend. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Jakob. So I'll just finish up by talking a little quickly about Salesforce Code Analyzer v5, which is now GA. And as you mentioned, Jakob, we are approaching time. We were hoping to include questions here. We'll get through a few questions as when I finish this quick section. So what's changing? Well, first of all, AppExchange rules, first and foremost, are easier to run than ever. You can run them in conjunction with any other rules that you want to run as part of your own Code Analyzer setup. But there's a dedicated AppExchange tag now for generating the documents that are required for security review, which is really, really cool. In addition to that, scanners now include Flow and regex, and Agentforce for developers is also tightly integrated. So as you're using Code Analyzer, you can accept and reject suggestions. So if you're worried about security and quality issues for your flow, if you're worried about inefficient regular expressions, if you're worried about efficiency for developers, and if you are interested in submitting for security review, then there's no reason you shouldn't be using Code Analyzer v5. Marco, did you want to give us a very quick overview of why this matters, or should we just jump straight into the critical note?
I think you said everything, so let's jump to the next one.
Great stuff. So we'll jump straight into the critical note, which is just that Salesforce Code Analyzer v4 is scheduled for retirement in August 2025. So that's just less than a month away. So if you're using v4 at the moment, make sure you switch over to v5. Okay. With that, we have got 1 minute for a few questions. I don't mind holding on for just a couple of minutes just to go through a few questions because I have seen quite a few come in. So let's jump through some of these as quickly as we can, and then we can wrap up. I really hope this has been useful. This is our first time running a sort of a release overview session. We welcome your feedback, and I'd love to do more of these in the future if these have been useful for you. So first question, how to check that app requires security resubmission. So I was just in the midst of responding to you here, but you should be notified via email when you're being called up for re-review. You can also log into the partner community and check the contact emails under the publishing console. You should be able to see which emails you've got there. I think the console allows you to add up to 2 emails, so 2 people can get notified, just to make sure the right people are being contacted. You'll also see, I can't exactly remember what the layout is, but it's something like solutions, and there's all of your various different packages there, and next to each version it'll say requires re-review, or it'll say ready to list, or something along those lines. There's a question here: is the migration tool for ISVs only, or for any client using 1GP? As far as I am aware, and Marco, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the migration tool is for managed packages in general. So as long as your org has been caught up in the rollout, in that scheduled rollout that's ongoing, you should be able to use that tool to migrate. But Marco, do correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I think what we've seen is that most of the clients using packaging are using unmanaged package in 1GP, and they're using unlocked packages in 2GP. So the migration doesn't make sense. But if they were to use a real 1GP under a real managed package, then they would be able to move it to a real 2GP managed package. I'm not sure that we're planning to authorize to create an unlocked package from a one, or to convert a 1GP into an unlock. That doesn't seems to be what I'm aware of. Let's say that this way.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll just go through the last 2 questions that I'm seeing here. If people have got further questions, do feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. Jakob, I might send this one your way. What happens if a customer is using an AppExchange app, but the app hasn't upgraded their ICU formatting even after summer 25?
Long story short, they won't be able to enable ICU updates. So every time when they go to the setup and click update, they are going to get the same error message. Plus, during the next release, which I believe is going to happen in September, October, again, they are going to get same ugly email notification saying that enforcement was blocked because of this legacy metadata.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And then Marco, an Agentforce question for you. As a new ISV, we're considering options for joining AppExchange. Now we're seeing all the hype about Agentforce and Agent Exchange. Should we be changing our strategy? What do we need to factor in when considering Agent versus AppExchange? I assume that's Agent Exchange versus AppExchange.
Yes, I think it's a very good question. I think the way we're looking at this is there is this AI revolution. So customers are also looking after AI-centric solutions. So we believe that there is a world where you will get ISVs mostly delivering AI solutions. So another way to say that is that we are a 20 years old company, 20 plus, and the AppExchange is maybe more like the historical marketplace, while the Agentforce is the net new shiny marketplace, if people want to see it this way. What we're seeing is that it's also the way we're going to embrace the Agentforce. AppExchange is essentially a website where you go and you discover, while we are thinking more and more to have the Agent Exchange directly within the application of the org. As I was saying, there will be a discovery, there will be suggestion that will be AI driven and so on, so that the experience of getting access to it, consuming it, would be quite different. So we're not saying to people you have to make the choice. We're just saying to people, maybe if you were on the AppExchange, maybe you should be moving in and building something for the Agent Exchange. Or if you are only interested in one, just like position yourself in the one that you want.
Great. Thank you very much, Marco. I do see a couple more questions rolling in now. I will reach out to you individually to answer your questions. So rest assured, we will get your questions answered. But as I said at the beginning, we were planning to do about 45 minutes here. So I think now is a good time to wrap up. As I mentioned before, we really, really appreciate your attendance. Thank you for joining. I hope you've got benefit from attending this session. We're looking forward to doing more of these in the future. So do please give us your feedback and let us know what you'd like to hear about moving forward. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye.